Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Footy Chat. Here we are. Gather round has just happened. We're heading into Easter. What an exciting time it is to be a footy fan. Now, obviously my Saints didn't get the win over the weekend, but a person whose team did win and won pretty convincingly coming from behind on Thursday night, Geelong. Lorenzo, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good, Woodsy. Watched quite a bit of football at various levels. But Geelong, what a way to start. Gather round that was. I think they were 30 points down at one point, and a great come-from-behind victory, which we'll talk about in the recap. Coming from behind, not for every team in the AFL this weekend. Some were able to come from behind and others didn't. But a good, solid weekend of football, and Gather round continuing to build is one of the big weekends in the footy calendar now.
Now, I'm sure we're going to plenty to talk about in terms of gather round, but we're just going to do a first, as we do every week. We look at the photo of the week now. Look away, Boxty. Look away, Simone, because it is Port Adelaide. It is Connor Rosie celebrating with Horn Francis and Ollie Wines with a dejected Hawthorn player just in the foreground. Love this shot. Love the emotion of the highs and the lows combined in one shot. I love it.
It is a very good photograph,
why not?
And very symbolic of what happened, what stunned the football world on Sunday night. Sunday night, by the way, this time slot surely has to be more of a thing now. It was a great way to finish. It was what the WWE would have done had Port Adelaide and Hawthorn finish off the round. And no one quite expected the first half that we got.
It's funny you mentioned WWE with WrestleMania this weekend,
yeah,
so I'm going to be pretty split up. I'll talk about that more in what's to come, but we just take a look back and just a quick reflection on round 5. Started off with Adelaide and Geelong, and I've got a great game to kick off gather round. Adelaide showed they can hang with the best, but Geelong too good. Bailey Smith and Max Home are the barometer for Geelong.
They are.
When they are on, so are Geelong.
Yeah, that's completely right. They were the big standouts there in the middle of the field. Bailey Smith, again, outside of having the Nike headband the wrong way around in the preseason, has basically done nothing wrong since first suiting up in the blue and white hoops. It was a fantastic match, perhaps the best game we've had all season so far. It was high scoring. There was lots to talk about, but Geelong coming from behind and ended up winning by 19 points. I'll also say that Jeremy Cameron was very important in that last quarter on a couple of occasions. That is a Jeremy Cameron-style quarter. I just right at the start of the quarter went, oh, this is one for the dart, and he went off. And Patrick Dangerfield as well. The stats won't say he did a ton, but he was important up forward. He was bringing the ball to ground. He was an important factor as well. So even though the stats won't say that he had his greatest performance of his career, he had a very strong night and a very strong performance from a Geelong team that had a couple of losses a few weeks ago, and we weren't really sure where they were at. Still props to Adelaide scoring 100 points in what was a relatively high scoring round this particular weekend. But Geelong getting the victory by 19 points in the end, and it is building up to what will be a fantastic Easter Monday when we see the Cats next. They do have also quite the advantage with a few extra days break over there.
I was going to say, they didn't really have that much of a... I mean, they both played Adelaide teams, so it was exciting, but it was more of a combined crowd, obviously, with Gather Round. Now, we move on. Let's run through these. Collingwood versus Sydney. Collingwood looking good. Still don't know where they
I'm not sure. They're currently sitting 4th, and that's mainly because Hawthorn lost so badly. But I'm not that confident they're a top 4 team right now.
Well, we'll wait and see on that one.
They were definitely good enough to beat Sydney
and
on the weekend.
Sydney, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either. It's a bit difficult.
They're once again disappointing against a finals team. Or
they're somewhere in the middle, but I'm not sure whether they're going to land on the right side or the wrong side of the 8, to be honest.
Now, North Melbourne, Gold Coast. Gold Coast just banking the wins early. They might have had a easier run, as some people put it, but this one was a good percentage booster. And
it was. It was close for periods of this match, but Gold Coast, they were worthy winners, and probably by the margin they were. I was very happy with the result, which we'll get to later.
Yes, with your first big call getting hit.
Getting up.
Now we go to Carlton and West Coast, and Carlton walked in on this one.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't have thought Carlton were winless going into it, seeing the result. They've finally got a win on the board. It was the percentage boost to kind of equal it out. And Vis I just don't think Voss is out of the woods yet.
No, he's not. The pressure is still on. We might look back at this later in the year and say, well, this was a game sort of like in 2022 when they made the prelim. They had a bad start, then they thrashed Gold Coast to the MCG, and that really kick-started their season. Maybe this is a game of sorts.
This might be the catalyst, but
I
I feel like it's the pressure, and it's just been released ever so slightly, but it's still a lot.
They're 103.6% at the moment, so despite the 4 not very good performances, they do have a percentage.
But you look at their first few games, they were good in the first half. They just lost the second half and lost the game in that. So that is that takeaway from that game. Western Bulldogs, Brisbane, game of 2 halves.
Yep.
Brisbane showing up in the second half, and it just goes to show, wondering what they would do now. I actually got a stat, and I've hopefully saved it. It's the 8 consecutive time that Brisbane have been behind, and I don't have it. It's
at
probably
sort of
on my
like
iPad.
half time or at some point during the game.
8 consecutive time. Yeah, 8 consecutive game where they've been behind at halftime and they've won the game.
Or something like that, yeah.
Amazing stuff in that. But
they are what's the best way to describe them? A Chautauqua-like outfit, the Brisbane Lions.
Where have I heard that
I'm sure I've heard that before. Anyway.
Where have I heard that one before? But and Dogs, it's hard. I think this one was a Brisbane Lion. Like the story was the Brisbane Lions rather than Dogs. I'll get through to the Dogs in the preview for the next round because of they take on St Kilda, and that game is the barometer for both sides.
Yes, it is.
Melbourne versus Essendon. Melbourne turned up in the third quarter, but that was it. Essendon showed up in the other 3, and it still leads to question, how long will Goodwin last?
I'm sort of looking at around that King's birthday match personally as either his last match or the first match where he's not there, somewhere around there.
If he's still in the job in King's birthday, will he keep the job? If Collingwood thrash Melbourne, surely that would
probably be the end of it.
Yeah,
the
nail in the coffin.
Around the same time for the Magpies. It was at King's. It was up in Sydney because it was during COVID times, but it was around that King's birthday when Buckley left. So that for the Pies. So it sort of has that sort of feeling of it could be around that same sort of mark. We'll wait and see. But the good one does appear to be on borrowed time.
It's just reversed there. So
exactly.
Now we move on to Richmond Fremantle. Fremantle just did what they needed to do. 4 points in the bank. Richmond going?
Yeah, relatively. How many points did they score? I need to bring this up. Well, they were sort of in the first half a little bit, and then it wasn't to be for them. It was only 7-5-47. I thought they scored a little bit more, to be honest. But yeah, Fremantle they looked a bit better, and they had in previous weeks. Which again, is that a kickstarter for them to be a little bit better, especially against better teams? We'll see. They've got Melbourne this week, so there will be eyes on them. Perhaps not necessarily for them, but. We'll be interested to see I'll be interested to see how they go next week.
St Kilda and GWS. Now this one, it shows what you do when you apply pressure to the Saints.
Oh yeah.
And obviously Norwood, it's a different style of a ground. It's more that state footy style ground.
Yep.
Narrower wings, if you will. So the distance. So you've got to you almost have to play down the centre.
Yep.
It was exciting in the first quarter where you showed up and then just let them get back in the game and let them take hold of the game.
Yes.
But then again, GWS are a team where I rate, so I'm not complaining too much.
Can I sit third on the ladder, GWS?
Plus, it was a 30-plus degree day, so
it was.
I'm not going to enter into any other what went wrong because I feel like Jack Higgins might have played too much Call of Duty.
Perhaps.
And now we get to the main event.
Oh, this was the big one.
The main event of the evening was Port Adelaide and Hawthorn. Port started strong, and strong is an understatement. 71 points they were up. And then Hawthorn showed up late.
All of a sudden, you thought, this cannot happen, can it? It would have been the largest comeback in league history.
It would have been. I think the previous record was 69 points.
Yes, Essendon... North Melbourne from 2001.
It was almost close, and then Port Adelaide just kicked a few goals.
They had 2 goals in about 30 seconds off a.
I was going to say the free kick, the dubious free kick. We're not going to get too much into the Willie Rioli stuff because I don't feel comfortable talking about that without knowing the full situation. I will say, however, people that want to call him a flog, you've got the right to do so, but I feel like there's a bit more underlying stuff here that he's that showing the ball, and then that might have just been a bit of a release for him.
Yeah,
I'll leave that there. Say what you will.
Yeah.
But I just could not believe.
Yeah, well, the Hawthorn defence was.
I've said right from the start.
I've said right
from the start of this season. I don't have a read on Port Adelaide, given the Ken Hinkley situation. They show up, they don't show up.
Collingwood, they didn't show up. Off the back of that
St Kilda, they didn't really show up. But then Hawthorn, they showed up. And Hawthorn are...
I said in
what everybody says is this premiership favourite for this year.
Or at least in the top tier, yeah.
Port Adelaide just showed how to dismantle them.
Well, you bring a lot of energy, and I think Hawthorn tried to sort of downplay the rivalry part, and Port Adelaide weren't. They were ready to prove themselves, and it showed in the first 10 minutes when
I think Port Adelaide fans,
when a lot of the Port Adelaide players were just wide open inside 50, and the Hawthorn defenders were asleep, and it just got out to beyond.
If you watch the centre clearance, if you watch the clearance bounces, so the throw-ups and around the ground, and the movement of the Port Adelaide players where they're able to get off the man and then run free.
Yep.
It was amazing to watch, so I think other teams have to replicate it. I think Port Adelaide fans are really... It's the Essendon and Kevin Sheedy jacket...
Yes, against West Coast.
Jacket hurling moment.
Yeah.
And they do that with the scarves. I think this is going to be the next big thing.
This could be a thing, yeah.
Port Adelaide Hawthorn, it's just going to be the airplane.
That's going to be what it is now, and that semi-final will always be the where it started.
But no, that was round 5 in the season 2025. Now Yoda Rants is just going to be held off.
Okay.
I'm going to hold off because I feel like you and I have a bit of a similar
themes.
And I feel like we're going to go head-to-head. So I'm going to hold off for Yoda Rants, and I'm going to let you fully present your point of view when the time comes for the Volcano.
Should we do the horse race first?
We're doing the horse race first. Now, obviously, we're at the 500 now, so we're going to go crushing through the first 400. So, as you can see, where your team's kind of landed, let's keep going.
I think Richmond have just moved back and back and back. They shot out and then realised after about 100 metres they didn't have anything. All right, so this was last week.
Okay, so this was last week. Now
I haven't seen where these are going.
I feel like you can... I feel like you're going to have to go back and forth a couple of times, so that's all right. So just go forward first.
All right, here we go to the 500. Yes, look at that. Geelong have just gone in front. Hawthorn have gone 4 off the fence. Collingwood have moved up, and the Suns are trailing them in a nice position. You can see sort of the tiers of this competition.
I feel like there's 4
Melbourne is almost out of the back of shot.
I feel like there's 4 tiers now. You can actually see there's 4 tiers. There's the contenders. There's
the maybe they're in the finals. Maybe they're not.
In the middle.
Yeah.
This is. I don't know where to rate Bulldogs.
I feel like it's impossible.
This is where
you can almost count it as 3 contenders. We're not sure, and they're not very good.
I feel like we're not sure is Essendon, Port Adelaide, Bulldogs, Sydney, Fremantle, St Kilda.
Yeah.
Then the back markers are going to be these 5 here. So I feel like as the season goes on, it will basically move. These ones are kind of moving back. These are going to stay in the midfield. These ones are going to stay in the midfield. And then it's going to be the Brisbane. It's going to be the one kind of they're still holding the belt, aren't they? But I'm not.
Yes, they are.
They've got to stop. They've got to play 4 quarters of footy.
They haven't lost a game this year, Brisbane, which everyone seems to have forgotten.
But they've got to play 4 quarters of footy. I feel like the fact that they are Chautauqua is the fact that they're in the back of the contenders pack right now.
Yeah.
Is they're ready to strike. You've got... I feel like they could easily be in front by good 10 metres. But I just want to see them against some good games. Good games under the belt. I'm just quickly... I think this week they've got Collingwood. So
Brisbane Collingwood is a traditional matchup now, Easter Thursday. This one's
going to be a good one to see where Brisbane are. Are they going to go... Are they going to go down to the fence, or are they going to keep out wide and challenge? So
this is where we're really going to see where the lines are at, and this is definitely this Lions-Pies match will be the most anticipated heavyweight matchup that we've seen all year at this point.
But there's going to be a few matchups. So obviously I said St Kilda and Western Bulldogs. So that one's going to be a really good indicator to see where they are. You've got North Melbourne and Carlton. You've got West Coast and Essendon. You got Melbourne and Freo. Adelaide and the Giants are right there. You got Richmond, Gold Coast, not really close. Sydney, Port Adelaide, that's relatively in the same bunch. And then obviously Geelong and Hawthorn. So for this round of footy, you've got some really good contests, and then you've got some not so on paper good contests. But I feel like for now, this is going to be a good round to kind of settle the bunch. Well, after this round will be a quarter of the round of the season done.
Yep.
And there might be a little bit more movements, but I feel like at that point it's going to be where they are. Will probably be where they are for the majority of the season, bar maybe one or two.
Yep.
And I actually don't see any of these teams winning the flag. Even though I think I've still got Bulldogs as not yet.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not going to be the Chautauqua like last year where Brisbane started poorly.
Yeah.
So if I was doing this last year, Brisbane would probably be where Doggies are. That's like how crazy that season was.
Yeah. It feels like the poorer teams this year are almost much poorer than they were in 2024, and it's going to be harder to come back, even though...
the one team that
we'll see in about 6 weeks.
The one team I think we were having a chat about is like, this is the team.
Yes.
That's the team where I think they could actually be the ones to have that
because their list is
strong
good enough,
drive. They could have a strong drive. I don't see them quite making the finish line in first. However, they could be just passing a few teams towards the latter half of the season. So that is the 500 for this week. Next week, you'll see the 600. Now we go into our weekly segment of Bad Kicking is Bad Football. Now, West Coast Eagles, what happened? Now, I know you played Carlton. I know you're not expecting to win much this season, but when you kick 6-14...
Woof. Mind you, everyone else except their opponents, Carlton, who kicked 7-19, and the 8-9 from the Ds had were positive, more goals than behind. So overall, it was a very good weekend of kicking, but we may have had our worst bad kicking is bad football performance, or best, depending on how you exactly want to count it with the double negatives, of the year. 6-14, not good enough, West Coast. Scoring 20 times.
I was going to say,
could have made this a little bit closer.
If you reverse it to 14-6, you still lose, but it's respectable.
Oh, yeah.
So, you're never really in that game, so I'm not going to hold too much, but still, you got to go on the wall. And we review who's on the wall for this season. We've got, I think, six clubs now. Six clubs are on there. 1/3 of the competition. So 2/3 have avoided it so far. Now,
yeah. Can I also say the West Coast is our first non-Victorian side to come up on the wall. Congratulations, those out west. You've joined Carlton, Collingwood, Richmond, Melbourne, and Essendon. So we've got 6. We've got a third of the competition up there. We'll see how long teams can hold off being put on the wall of shame.
Now, this is the main event. This is the main event for this podcast because I feel like you and I are going to go at it a little bit. I'm not going to say a word until you are finished.
Okay, because you sort of... That's the way I'm thinking about when Caroline Wilson did her... What was Kara's error on Footy Classified, and then Kara's call now on the agenda set is she does get... unrestrained access to this, and I was hoping for that sort of last week, and then
you don't get unrestrained access every week. I feel like the weeks where I don't actually have the same point. However, I feel like if you make your point, and then I'll make mine. So, all
right,
you've got the floor.
We'll get on the way. Thank you very much, Woodsy. I was going to say, as always, I did it for the first time last week. A accompanying article on extratimemedia.com will be coming up shortly after this podcast, and so make sure to keep an eye on that particular website. Lots of very interesting writings are being put up by some great people who've joined Extra Time in the last month, and you can subscribe. You put your email address on there, and hopefully we'll be sending you some goodies. Anyway, the headline this week for my Volcanzo is Gather Round is great in Adelaide, so I'm not denying that, but it should rotate. So here is basically my very basic principle. Don't get me wrong, Gather Round really does work in Adelaide. Geographically, it works well. The weather is always nice, which it might not be with Sydney, let's be honest. And there are great venues where games are played all weekend. It is something on the footy fans' bucket list with the uniqueness of games at Norwood Oval and now in the Barossa. I want to go to a game at Norwood. The history of the parade, I'd love to get there at some point. What I can't do is join everyone else in hailing this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is probably more a reference to the media more than anyone else. The concept of playing a week of sport in one place isn't something unique to Australia. Heck, the idea didn't even originate in Australia. The NRL's Magic Round was a copy of English Rugby's Magic Weekend. I can't call the people involved geniuses when they are copying an idea that worked successfully for 20 years in another nation. Eddie Maguire went as far as compared to Gather Round to the Super Bowl. As a lover of the NFL, I can say, Eddie, no, it absolutely isn't. It works fantastic. We're nowhere near Super Bowl territory with basically anything we do in Australian sport, and we probably never will be, which is fine. We've got a big difference in big difference in countries and the way our media operates. There's been a lot of hailing of Peter Malinauskas, the SA Premier. I will say I'm not quite want to give him as much credit as a lot of people do. He is not the first person to realise you can basically convince the AFL with anything if you just present them a sack with a $sign on it. That's all he did. It was very It's a very studious idea that many people have copied over the years. If you give the AFL a slap of money, they will do something. It's the only reason why it's happening here and not in Sydney, because the plan was Sydney or a rotation of sort. But the SA government gave the AFL a lot of money, and they went, yeah, we'll take that instead of growing it in Sydney. When I see the lots of people that come down to Gather Round, and again, I'm not saying it doesn't work in Adelaide. It does work really well in Adelaide. I do go, if we did this, but in a place where Australian football isn't really as popular, we might get more people interested in Australian football. I know, a novel idea. Now, whenever people bring up Sydney or Perth or anywhere else, you hear all the negative. It's too far away, it's too small, the city doesn't care about footy. These, for me, are all more the reason to do it. When you see there are some issues or some difficulties on the way, you should strive to go past them and try and make it work nevertheless. Sydney is geographically not too bad. It's probably not as good for the WA fans, let's be honest. And, of course, Perth is very far away from everyone else. It's basically another country, WA. But I'm certain the footy public will make it work. And I'm certain that there are footy administrators in those places where it would work, especially if the grounds weren't quite as far away as, say, the Barossa Valley or Adelaide Hills was compared to the Adelaide Oval. You can have a really close environment, and they've got grounds that are similar to Norwood Oval. They're not quite your typical AFL grounds with sort of their dimensions, but they certainly will work, I think. I'm certain that there are about 4 cities in this country, or maybe even 5 if you want to include Melbourne, not that I think Melbourne should be in Gather Round, where this would work. Mainly because I've seen it work in a completely other sport for the last 20 years and seen it work in the NRL in this country, excuse me. I'm not expecting this to happen, by the way, a sort of rotational system, given the MCG now wants a Labor Day Eve game. By the way, the MCG, that they see 2 games being played in New South Wales, Queensland on a weekend where there's no footy in Melbourne, and they clutch their pearls like, we want something. You've already got enough, MCG, that's enough. So I'm not going to join in with the media how this is the greatest thing ever. We've seen this in other sports. They've done very well, Adelaide, but I still feel like there's a little bit of a missed opportunity. If I was God Emperor of the AFL, I could do whatever I like. I would have it rotate along Adelaide, Perth, Sydney, and Hobart as well. Mind you, I do the same thing with the grand final, so I'm not exactly going to be leading the AFL anytime soon. At the very least, I would be happy with following on with something Craig Hutchison said on the Agenda Setters, where if you sort of extended it in Adelaide and did a semi-long-term deal, but you carve out a year or 2 for Hobart when that 19th team comes up, when they eventually build this stadium they keep talking about. I think that would be really important for the 19th team. And again, I think, yes, Hobart's much smaller than Adelaide, but I still think it would work because it's worked in lots of other areas, in lots of other sport. Mind you, I'm not expecting this. I'm expecting a long-term deal of some sort. I don't think they've signed one as of yet. Nevertheless, funnily enough, it would be a complete cash grab, but I guess this one's acceptable, unlike a Twilight Grand Final and a 10-team final series, Woodsy.
Wow. How do I combat that? All I'm going to say is it's the magic of Adelaide.
Oh, I do want to see more gather rounds in Adelaide. I just don't want it to stay there because I feel like it's not growing the game in the same way Sydney or Hobart would.
I feel like it's not necessarily about growing the game, gather round. It's about celebrating the game. So if you go to the next slide, first of all.
Oh, you've added something, have you? There we go.
How beautiful is this stadium? This is what you need. Thursday, Friday, Saturday day, Saturday night, and Sunday.
I'd actually only prefer the 4 games at the Adelaide Oval. To be
5
honest.
games.
But if you could, I guess you could have 5 games.
Love the 5 games. Then you had a day.
Mind you, you'd be able to do this at Optus Stadium as well, no
Yes.
doubt. It might even be better at Optus because it's a closed venue.
Now, that's why I love Adelaide Oval.
But yeah,
It's
I'm not saying it's not
close.
bad.
It's not
I
close.
like it also,
I
but
love the hill. I love the fact that you can go on the hill. I saw one content creator had a post on the Friday or Thursday. It was during the weekend. He got a selfie with a fan of every team.
Yep.
That is the magic of Gather Round.
We'll try and do the same thing when we go to the NFL.
My Yoda rant
Yep.
is sort of keeping it in Adelaide, but also keeping Gather Round. Over the weekend, I saw some social media posts about why the hell are we playing at Norwood from St Kilda fans and why the hell is Gather Round a thing? To those people, money talks, number one.
Yes,
as my colleague Lorenzo
as I have
mentioned.
conceded, no doubt.
Number 2, Norwood is celebrating the community aspect of football. Now, if you go to the next slide very quickly, this is celebrating I don't know what it's celebrating, to be honest. I heard it was a horrendous venue with no cover from the elements. It was no covers. So had it been torrential rain,
We would have been in trouble.
and it was blaringly hot. So a few people passed out before the game even started
Oh, I
on
didn't know about
the
that.
Sunday.
See, the
As-
media weren't telling you about that.
As I've been told from somebody who was there, a Richmond supporter, Richmond Fremantle played. Now, I just want to go back to the
previous one or with the
previous
Oval?
Previous one. How good was it to have a festival of footy in another state other than Victoria? Being a Victorian and being a lover of Victoria and loving the grand final, and I love what they do the week of the grand final. I love the fact that that was in another state. I love the fact it was in Adelaide because it is central. It is central for Perth, central for Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and Tasmania and Northern Territory. Adelaide is the perfect option for Gather Round. It simply must stay there. Having a venue like the Adelaide Oval, which is picturesque on the river, and you saw photos of fireworks, and it's got this unique design of you've got the hill on one side, and then you've got this mountainous pavilion. I'm trying to think. It's, what do you call them? Grandstand.
Yep.
A mountainous grandstand facing it. If you've ever been to Adelaide Oval in the opposition cheer squad, you know what it's like to basically have this open air behind you and then being engulfed in front of you. It is breathtaking. Having a game where 18 teams are represented, and it's for each of the games, even the Adelaide games, you've got the majority of fans might not even go for the team that is playing. I love that. That is why Gather Round must stay. And I'm kind of going through all my arguments here, mixing them up because of it simply is a festival of footy. Now, I don't see it working in cities like Sydney or Brisbane, even though they've got the stadiums. I feel like they're too far apart. In Brisbane, you've got Gold Coast an hour away. You could kind of go Gabba and Gold Coast. But then where else? Would you go to, like, what other venue in
I don't think
Queensland?
Brisbane would work.
What about Sydney?
Sydney? You've got a couple. You've obviously got the main 2 stadiums there.
You might have North
Sydney, Henson Park are options, and
But-
they're closer to the SCG and Giant Stadium than the Barossa is to the Adelaide Oval and Norwood.
Yes.
So things would be much more inclined in a tight space.
And then we've got Perth. Now, if Subiaco was still around, I could potentially see it happening with Subiaco
but it is not.
and the WACA being other venues. The WACA obviously hosted AFL games. I
It
don't
did.
think it can now. I think it's been renovated so that it wouldn't. So that leads to the question of where. Now, I will concede Tasmania is a perfect option for the year that Tasmania enter the league.
I think it needs to be more around when that stadium gets built, which won't coincide with when they enter the league, probably. It'll probably be a year or two after.
The first season where that is there, I feel like that is the perfect time to do it. However, I think Adelaide is the perfect venue because they've got a stadium which holds about 47,000, 45,000. They've got community venues, which obviously Norwood won't say much. I mean, the biggest complaint about Norwood is the wing. They've got narrow wings. So here you see the Barossa so much spread out. I think the Norwood, basically where the South Australia was, so it's about good 10 metres in, 5 metres in. I'm not exactly sure. But
that doesn't sound wrong.
It goes back to the point of, I think Gather Round would only work in Adelaide. You're not going to bring it to Melbourne.
No.
As much as a Melburnian would love it, I don't think all 9 games could work in Melbourne. It just wouldn't happen. I feel like Adelaide...
Well, it would work.
Adelaide
it
being the
isn't right.
central point of Australia. Well, it's not the central point, but it is central to
it's
travel.
It's central in terms of capital cities.
Yeah, and travel. So that is my reasoning behind supporting Gather Round not going anywhere. With that said,
yes,
I love the Volcano, and I was a bit muddled up with my Yoda rant, but it was more about just seeing comments about, we shouldn't be playing in a community venue or Gather Rounds. It's like...
No, we should definitely have Gather Round, and we should definitely be playing more at community venues.
I feel like the 4 games on the weekend, so you have one each day at a supplementary venue.
Yep.
So Adelaide Oval hosts the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 games on Saturday, the doubleheader. I like that because you've got that bit of a break where you clear the stadium out and then a new lot come in. I love that. And it's unique. It's happening again, or it happened last year?
It happened last year, but the last couple of years they were sort of the same ticket. It was a bit more of a weird one. Now they've sort of spread them out a bit more.
Yeah. No, but I'm pretty sure it happened at Marvel Stadium.
And it's going to happen at Marvel Stadium during Sir Doug Nicholls' Indigenous round. I'm pretty sure.
That's the one I thought
in about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whenever that is.
I'm just going to stall while I check this because I was certain I had something about it.
In the fixture, yeah. That was a very odd quirk of the fixture this year. They're going to have
13?
It's probably around there, something like that.
Around 10, 11.
It's definitely...
Okay, so you got Carlton and... Yeah, you got Carlton GWS at Marvel at 12:35.
Yep.
And then you've got North Melbourne Collingwood at 7:35. So it's still that spread out game. And I feel like this could be the norm. You have one round a year where that happens. So it's exciting to see. As I said, Gather Round should stay, and it should stay in Adelaide. Now we move on to Rate or Hate. Now this week it's very special. I've got a kind of a quiz.
All right. I don't know how this is. I just know something about jumpers probably.
So I want you to... We've got the 8 jumpers from Gather Round. So if you go to the next slide. So here they are. These are the 8. Now I've actually partnered them up in this order.
For a particular reason?
Yes.
So is the order Sydney, Gold Coast, Hawthorn, Adelaide? No,
so it is West Coast, Sydney.
Yep.
Giants, Gold Coast, Melbourne, Hawthorn, and St Kilda, Adelaide.
Okay.
So they're the pairings. I want you to tell me why I've paired them up in that order.
My first thought was something about reverse alphabetically, given West Coast at the start and Adelaide is at the end, but with St Kilda the second to last. That's not it. Why have you paired them up in that particular
So
order?
This is the first time Lorenzo is looking at them. And I'm wanting to see why.
Am I going to spot something? This is good. This is
making your brain work, and I'm going to keep talking while you think about it, and then let me know when you've actually got an answer. So
I thought I was onto something there, given the bottom 4 were all New Balance, and then Gold Coast as well is thrown in a New Balance as well. So I don't think it's anything to do with the apparel sponsor.
It isn't. It isn't nothing to do with the apparel sponsor, but I like your thinking there.
I'm trying a bit of lateral thinking here. I've been listening to Tom Scott's podcast.
So I'll give you about 30 seconds to try and figure out the first one. If you can't think of any, I'll give
first
you a
one.
clue. Have you got anything? Do you want a clue?
I think I need a clue.
Okay, the clue is they are all linked.
Okay. Something about
So
there's
when I say they are
there's a
all
big
linked, no, when I say
logo on the middle of them,
when I
except
say
St.
they are
Kilda
all
sort of.
linked, when I say they are all linked, I mean the pairings are linked.
Okay.
And then obviously
West Coast and Sydney are paired.
that gives that link. So if you think about the link,
Coast
they've
and
all
Sydney
they've
have
all
a-
got something.
Is it?
Go with your gut feel for the first one.
The first thing I'm thinking of is it a rivalry sort of thing with West Coast Sydney, the Geelong Gold Coast? I'm not sure it works as well with Melbourne, Hawthorn, and St Kilda Adelaide.
But there's links. There are links, and
Yeah,
that's
can I jump
basically
Sure, why not?
okay. Go on.
This is Sean.
Can we think a pair of siblings maybe on
No,
these teams?
no, that's a good guess, but no. It is to do with what you said there, Lorenzo, about think rivalries, think history. And I've kind of given away there. Okay.
Have
They all have history, but I want you to explain what the history is for each
West
pairing.
Coast and Sydney had a long rivalry in the 2000s. They played in a couple grand finals.
Yes.
Gold Coast, GWS are the expansion cup because they're the two
Yes.
newest teams. Adelaide St Kilda played in the grand final 97.
Correct.
Is that it? Yep. And I guess Hawthorn and Melbourne also have a historical rivalry connection as well. No, they played grand final 1988. That's probably not what you're looking for.
You actually mentioned it earlier. You might not have. Someone else did. Someone else discussed this with me, and I thought it was you for a second. They've got history together.
Oh, they nearly merged back in the 90s. Yes.
So these clubs are all linked.
In
Might not
some way.
necessarily be the same
Yeah.
one. So
West Coast and Sydney have a rivalry.
05 and 06. Expansions, almost merged, and 97.
And 97 grand final. There we
And
go.
that's the only time I want to mention 97 grand final. But we're actually going to rate them now. So if you go to the first one, the first pairing is West Coast and Sydney. Now,
I think you're a big fan of that Sydney one.
I'm a big fan of the Sydney one, and I'm excited to see St Kilda do something similar with the Anzac Day Guernsey of this white. I love the white.
It's got a very feel of the Never Surrender style jumper. I'm not sure.
West Coast
all white
reminds
works,
me
but
of Adelaide and Hawthorn back in the day where they had
that bird.
the bird
Clash
head.
jumper.
This is basically West Coast version of if
that.
they did the Hawthorn one back in the day. I know they had their own eagle head.
Yeah, they
with
did.
The tri-panel. No, they did have their own eagle
They had
head
their
as
own
well.
one, but it was their logo of the time.
Yeah, it's the logo of the time. But I like this where it's like, okay, I just realized they had the white one with the eagle as well.
Yep.
I totally forgot about that jumper, but no, I do love these both.
Yeah, they're
But
both
I have
fair
to
the
pick
go.
one, and I have to go with Sydney just
Wow.
because of it's clean. The first time that any club's done a 95% jumper of white, and it works.
Yeah, I'm
Obviously,
not quite as excited of a jumper that's
obviously
95%
Carlton, obviously
white.
Carlton have
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah,
But I feel like it's just clean.
Yes, I'm slightly leaning towards the West Coast one for
So
being a bit more
you're
novelty
thinking
and
about the
retro-y.
washing. You're thinking about the washing. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with the next one. This one here. Oh, I like them both. I think every gather round. Oh, so the 4 teams we've seen so far, they've absolutely smashed it. I love it. I love Gold Coast.
Yeah,
Then
I'll give Gold Coast all the credit for
although
standing
they
out.
advertised themselves as the first team to wear pink, which is not correct. 2 teams have done it before.
Well,
Melbourne and Hawthorn.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
Hawthorn, yeah.
Melbourne, and I think a few in the AFLW, but
Yep.
Hawthorn and Melbourne. But I've got to go with Giants.
Yes, I'm leaning towards the Giants too. That Never Surrender is one of my favourites in all of the league.
They should
It
make
just
that
works.
the home jumper.
Yes, please.
Next one. Melbourne and Hawthorn. Now it's Melbourne.
Yes, it
clear
is
winner.
Melbourne. Yeah.
Hawthorn training kit versus Melbourne retro. This is why you.
Yep.
I think that
With
AFL logo.
with the retro AFL logo
the
as
retro
well.
AFL logo should be
Getting
the
it-
gather round logo.
for
And-
the teams involved. Yeah,
Yeah, no, every team, even
even Gold Coast.
even
j-
Giants and
just-
Gold Coast, and just
Do they create a 90s style jumper in their
They just have to go back and okay, you have team
Use that
Team
Team GWS.
one that they
one of
teased,
these days they're gonna do it.
that they teased, and then you have Gold Coast just bring out the wave.
In all seriousness, if I knew that Hawthorn were going to wear that abomination on Sunday night, I might have thought about jamming for Port Adelaide.
They probably thought it was a training session, so
that was part. It didn't work. It didn't work.
and
But
we
yes,
go,
Melbourne-
we go
Melbourne-
to the next
Melbourne's is
one,
good.
which is bringing back 97 memories.
Yes,
but,
it is.
yeah, I think St Kilda for me.
Oh, St Kilda, yes.
It's got the St Kilda merged with Geelong feel to it.
It does.
but
It's got those classic hoops that we know works
but
as a
it just
design.
works. The jumper worked with white shorts. I loved it.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they weren't able to get the chocolates. But that is Rate or Hate this week. Next week, we've got a very special. And we're looking back at Anzac jumpers.
Yep.
Obviously, St Kilda have released their Anzac jumper for
That
this
is a
year, which is
beauty.
the first time they're wearing an Anzac jumper on Australian soil. Obviously, they wore a few back in the day when they played in New Zealand. So we're going to take a look back at every team's, or the teams that have done it well, and we'll pick out maybe one from each team. There's been some really good ones.
Yep.
And we'll put them in a matchup, and then the following week we will look back and see all the teams that played in Anzac jumpers.
Yep.
And we will rate them accordingly in that matchup. So it will be Essendon versus Collingwood for the next 2 weeks in Rate or Hate. That is Rate or Hate for this week as we go into Lorenzo's history lesson.
Yes.
Now, I'm
I've
excited.
held this one close to my chest because I didn't want to reveal basically anything about this week. I was thinking about what could I do this week. We know Geelong Hawthorn are coming up, but everyone knows the story of that particular rivalry. And then it sort of hit me. I know exactly what I can do for this. A few weeks ago on the Know Your History segment on Jared Waitley's show, which he does with Shannon Gill, which is one of the best half an hours of radio, they were discussing a particular topic, and as I was listening I thought, I reckon I could get all my extra time buddies in on this one, because it is something that I reckon almost everyone will have a little bit of a connection to one way or another. So
Okay, I'm excited.
fellow podcast hosts, so Josh and Dylan this as well, Sean our producer, writers, honorary members, if Alien Box Bodie Streamer you're still watching and you want to
Noah
Fisher,
Fisher.
if you want to, if you
Noah
have
Fisher
stuff on
might
this,
come on next week. I forgot to message him.
Oh,
I
wow.
think he said he was free today, so
Okay.
I'm a bit. He's going to watch this and be a bit upset. But next week, no, if you're around, which you might be back in Melbourne, so you won't be going till the following weekend, so it's all right.
yeah, so if anyone, if the layman off the street wants to tell us your memories of this particular thing, so what I brought with me today, and this is one of these reaction style things, because I don't think I've looked inside of this thing for about
Okay.
10 years, all right? What I have brought me today is 2013 footy cards. This was the topic of discussion on Shannon Gill and
let's have a look.
Jared Waitley. So so I'm not sure this is going to be the greatest product ever. I've just ticked to look inside, and it is GWS first because that's my brother's team. So this is 2013. I wanted to have a look at this. Do you want to open this first? I haven't looked inside of it for about 10 years.
Okay, I'm going to.
It's the yellow
first reactions, and obviously GWS
one.
are
GWS
first.
has to be first.
So
I think
see
Geelong is
Toby
second.
Green, Tom Scully,
Tom Scully.
Callum Ward,
So this was the interest. I wanted to
Jeremy
see.
Cameron,
Yeah, there we go.
Jonathan Patton, Jonathan Giles.
Oh, Jonathan Patton. Yeah, I remember him.
We got a few checklists. We got a Team Star sticker card of Callum Ward. We got Richmond up
Oh, it's
next.
Richmond
Brett
next, which is my
Delidio,
mother's team.
Sean Grigg, Batcher Hooley, Alex Rance,
Rance.
Trent Cochin, holy gosh, a tattoo-less Dustin
Dusty.
Martin, tattoo-less Shane Tuck, Shane Edwards, Jake
Tuck.
King.
That's his soul.
But I'm gonna try and I don't know if
I don't know if
see
this is going to work.
But Dustin Martin without tattoos.
We might put this up on the
2013.
footy chat.
I think you got to take a photo.
We've got
of
to
that
take a
and
photo,
that
put it on the footy chat Instagram. I'll share it on my story.
Robin Nahas.
Or Nahas. Nahas.
Jack
What are you
Freehold,
doing?
Ivan Marich, and then we got Melbourne, Jack
Oh,
Watts,
Melbourne
James
next.
Frawley, Jack Trengrove, Jeremy Howe,
Ooh,
Colin
Jeremy
Sylvia,
Howe.
Nathan Jones, and then we got Geelong,
Here we go.
Corey Enright, James Kelly, Andrew Mackey,
Kelly.
Harry Taylor, Jimmy Bartell, Steve Johnson, Joel Selwood, Paul Chapman, Tom Hawkins,
Chaffee was one of my favourites.
Stephen Motlop, Trent
Motlop,
Rest,
yes.
a.k.a. all the people that gave me nightmares in 2009.
Yeah, there's quite a few there that overlap, isn't there?
So I'm not going to go through all of them, but St Kilda here. Sam Fisher, Lee Montagna, Lenny Hayes, Jack Stephen, David Armitage, Stephen Milne, Nick Rewalt,
Milne's there
and
too.
Ahmed Saad.
I wanted to flip through this because I wanted to see what were
I'm
the
just-
players that you just sort of that you completely forget, but you had evidence. Like I know somewhere in there, not sure if it's the 2013 or 2014 one in Port Adelaide. I'm certain there's a Kane Corns card in there, even though I have no memories of him as a player.
Yes. Oh,
Is he
Kane
there?
Corns,
Kane Corns, he is in that one. Yeah, he might be in both. I'm certain. Yeah, I was certain there was a Kane Corns one in there because I reckon the last time I
I'm
flipped
just
through
excited-
this,
I'm
which
just-
might have been 5 years ago.
I'm just excited.
So they
Jonathan
talked about
Brown,
this. It was a
Daniel Merritt.
Great conversation on Know Your History, which is, again, must listen to radio, or as it is for me because I'm busy on a Thursday, listen back to it on the podcast.
I think I got rid of all my footy
I was
cards
going to
from
say
back in
that
the day.
there is.
I know.
Do you have absolutely anything
I've
from
got memories
further
of
back in the
I've got
days?
memories of a lot of stuff, and I recently picked up. When I say recently, a few years ago,
yeah,
I
that
picked
is
up
tattooed with dusty tape.
1993.
Yep.
St Kilda cards because I can remember having the
Nathan
whole
Jones,
set.
Yeah, he was another one of my
I
favourites.
can remember having the whole set, and what I used to do was I would
Andrew
have
Mackey.
the set. I'd shuffle them up into. I'd like split them up into forwards, backs, mids.
Scott Sellett's in
But
here.
back in the day, you didn't really have that,
Nick
so you
Nat.
just shuffled them up, and then you dealt them out, and then you had to make a team with that. thing.
Dusty.
So
Justin
that's
Fletcher.
what I just remember with footy cards. Like 1993, I think it was.
There's Gary Ablett.
1993 AFL cards. But the
Buddy.
biggest thing for me was stickers.
Yeah. So you've had, if anybody has cards or stickers or stories, if you still hold on to them,
So-
I think we've got 2013 to maybe
if you want a
16
good
or 17.
story,
Yeah, go on, Sean.
can I back maybe grade 1? When was that? Probably 2007 or 8 or 9
Gosh,
or
I'm
something
old.
like
Like
that.
2007, 8, or 9. I was year
When we
12.
had-
I was year 12 in 08.
Yeah,
Oh,
in 08 I
dear.
turned
Oh.
3.
And when I had
Talk about existential crisis, like
Yeah.
midlife
Oh,
crisis, and now I'm talking to people who weren't even really around when I finished primary school. Wow.
it is unfortunate. But
was a
when
Lance
we had
Franklin.
our trip
Yeah, there's
for
Colby.
Auskick to the MCG, they gave us a pack of footy cards, and by then I was going for Collingwood pretty staunchly, and I packed what was it? Best and fairest Dane Swan,
Oh, nice.
and I showed everybody. I yelled out about it, and 5 minutes later I went to check my pack, and someone had nicked it.
Yeah.
That was my prized possession.
Yeah, that
For
that
5
teacher.
minutes
That
and it was
I think the
gone.
biggest thing that taught me as a kid was you never gloat about what you got in your footy pack
Yeah.
because
Never.
you just go, "Yep, sweet."
It's next to no North Melbourne. Sorry, Bodie.
But no, it was one of those things where I could look back. I think it was like 1998 AFL stickers.
Yep.
Like, it was just having all this stuff, and it's like, you look at them, I'm like, oh, I would love to go back and actually collect a full set just to go back from my childhood. It might not have been 98. Oh, I can't remember, but it was one of those. And yeah, it's you look back at the sticker albums, and I think sticker albums.
Oh, I do remember this one. Right at the end here.
To
there's,
2000
2013 Box Hill Hawks child under 16 with the list of its senior fixture
Oh.
home game as well here.
So I remember like 2000. I can remember that sticker box. But yeah, I reckon what we got to do next week. I'll maybe next week or the week after. I'm gonna buy. I'll buy a few packs from years gone by.
Yeah.
So I might go say.
I'm interested to hear people's stories and different things. Maybe even I still can bring it up. As Woodsy probably gets yet another phone notification while he's trying to do a
Oh
podcast.
no! I'm just
I know you're
quickly
thinking for something.
checking eBay
I just want to
to
say,
see
just
the
flipping
price.
through, we've got Jack Rewalt here in the old Richmond. It wasn't really a clash jumper with the yellow down the sides there. That wasn't much of a help. Yeah, that we might take a photo of that Dustin Martin one. That's in a game against Geelong.
I'm just typing in Dane
I can't recognise who
Swan.
the Geelong player is in the background, but it is a Geelong player. Yeah,
I'm
Toby
interested
Green
to
hit
know
it straight
AFL
away.
card best and fairest. As you said, it was a Dane Swan. So I'm just going to see how much that goes
Yeah,
for
Dane
nowadays. So,
For all the methods, and Shannon Gill said this right at the end of that Know Your History segment, for all the methods of trying to bring new people into the game, we've had one that's worked pretty well for children right throughout the ages.
I think the sticker albums and the footy cards are the biggest way to bring kids into the game because they know They will get a card and it's like, oh, this is the team my dad supports. Okay, this is this, and you associate the players then that way. But I'm just going through it. I'm like, oh, there's a few nice
Trent
ones.
West is here for Geelong. Jeez, I don't have many memories of you, but
2009 best and fairest Port Adelaide card was Kane Corns.
yep. Yeah, cool.
The Dane Swan.
Where is he? He's in here.
A
Where's Port
tattoo-less
Adelaide? Yeah, there he
Dane
is.
Swan in that one as well. So I think we've got to explore that. I might have to
We'll
just
explore
buy
the
a
footy
few. I
cards
might have to
things.
buy a few packs
If
here and
people
there
have
from different
things
years.
holding around, if they do have stuff from,
But
I don't
think
even know
I think that goes
how
back
long
to
far back you go.
not just footy cards, but like what's like the oldest footy merchandise you've got.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's probably the oldest footy related thing. I have stuff that has that like this logo that hints back to further back, but obviously
it's
this wasn't
not
made in the
retro.
80s.
But I think I've got a few. I've got a scarf, a Saints scarf that has the VFL logo on it.
Yep.
But it'd be exciting to see from other people as well and what stuff they've got. And like, do you religiously wear the same scarf every week, or do you every year, or do you just change as I do with the members one now? So whatever the members year one is, I've got to wear that one. If it's a special game, I've got to wear that one. So like, I must actually highlight Spuds game. So it's like if there's any Spuds game merchandise that I've got, I'm going to be wearing that. Maddie's match, always that purple feel. You'll see me in. It's just exciting to get around it. But I've got to go. I will have to go back and see what merchandise have we got.
The nice thing with this sort of footy card stickers merchandise is this is truly timeless. We can talk about this as much in April as we can in, June and July. So there's no rush for anyone. If you need to, go into the attic and clear away the cobwebs to find stuff you used to show off at school at 7 years old, that's fine. There's no rush on this, but if you have any footy card stories, maybe let us know. And if you are one of the extra times to come on the podcast every now and then when available, maybe try and bring something in.
I think that's the biggest thing is let's try and do that. Anybody, we'll invite Noah Fisher. We'll invite other people on to get them and to get them on board. And the thing will be, you might not get one of these behind you, but you got to bring something in to showcase. And you might just look on eBay and figure it out then. But I feel like let's try and get that going now. I like that history lesson, and you've sparked something in me.
I had a feeling I might.
I'm going
I
to
wasn't sure how it was going to land with everyone, but there was going to be at least some people.
I know
how it lands with
there
extra
was
timers.
a couple of years ago. Talking about footy cards, though, I know there was a couple of years ago where I collected footy cards, and I basically got a few boxes and actually completed a few sets. So if anybody wants a complete set of footy cards,
there might be a little bit of trading that goes on if you just
2020,
complete
I think
stuff
it's
from
2023. I'll have to look back and see what year it was, but I did actually complete a few footy sets because I was opening packs and trying to collect some good cards. Got some really good cards out of that. Nothing to write home too much about, but I think that is a great history lesson to have, and it makes me really think. But it also makes me think about who can and can't win the flag this year.
Yes.
And it is any changes around 6, but let's go back to that, and we've got to fix.
We've got to fix this at some point on the rundown. This has happened for the last 3 weeks, and we completely forgot it. Lines are still in front of
what I'm going to do is I'm just going
to do it now. Or
I'm going to just move this. So if you go back now quickly, and now go forward. No, go back, and you're going to go back a couple of times now because I've.
there we go. Yeah.
So I've just fixed it up.
All right,
so
is it good to
who
go?
can and can't win the flag?
Who can and can't win the flag? We'll do that first. Here's mine. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gone. Adelaide, Brisbane, Collingwood, Essendon, Fremantle, Geelong, Gold Coast, GWS, Hawthorn, St Kilda, Sydney, and the Western Bulldogs.
And are you putting anybody on this week?
I don't think so.
So you're leaving it?
I'm happy to leave it there with the likes of
twice.
Fremantle and the Bulldogs next in line, I think. But
Going
and
3
St Kilda
times.
as well, of course. But we'll leave it there for this week. And I'm not putting anyone on, and I'm not reversing any decisions from previous weeks.
And I'm similar. I think the
only one is is it just Essendon there? Yeah, it's just the Bombers
just Essendon
that you've
at the
been
moment.
willing
I,
to.
think
put on there?
I think that's it for me as well. So we're nothing along the lines there.
Yep.
We move on to the next one,
We will.
which is big calls. Now this week's big
Well,
calls.
yeah.
Obviously Brisbane Lions.
Still heavyweight champions. They play Collingwood this week, which means that it's going to be interesting to see who comes out of this one, because depending on the result, we will either have an Anzac Day heavyweight championship or St Kilda looking to regain the belt, because that's who Collingwood will play the Bombers next on the 25th
And
of
Brisbane
April,
plays
and
St
Brisbane
Kilda.
plays St Kilda the
Brisbane,
week after.
Brisbane plays St Kilda in the Anzac jumper. Very nice.
Yes.
Now looking
Big calls time.
looking back at big calls, and you finally got on the board with this
I'm
one.
on
Gold
the
Coast
board.
at win 40+, and I didn't think about this one. Gold Coast played North Melbourne, and I should have challenged 40 points, but no, they won by 52. So in essence,
Yep.
it was a good call.
I'm on the board. That's
I'm-
all I was really hoping for
I'm not
this week.
so sure about mine. Now, going
Now-
into the last game, mine looked pretty certain. I think Hawthorn needed to win by 16 points for
Yeah.
it to happen.
Yeah, you were looking good.
With
and then
Gold Coast winning by 52 points, Fremantle winning by
51.
61.
Or 61, sorry. Yep.
So right there, that is 113 points.
Yep.
And Brisbane won by 21.
Yeah, so that's 134. So you just needed not
Yeah.
not even three,
Now
three
looking
goals.
back at this, I should have included Essendon. I should have included Carlton, but I didn't.
You didn't.
I included Hawthorn. So Port Adelaide
Which
won
wasn't
by
a bad
30
call
points. So at the
7
end of the
days
day,
ago.
104 points, just 46 points off. Not good enough,
miles
though.
away, but
Not
to be.
not close enough. Now we move on to next week. Now
Yes.
you've got a crowd one.
yeah, I've got a crowd one, and if anything, this I could go back going. I could have gone higher. The biggest crowd ever to see an Anzac Day match occurred in 2014, 80,222, and the MCG is expecting as many as 85,000 there. Usually, obviously, with these things, they're sometimes a fraction over. So I'll just go 82,000 plus, but I'm expecting the biggest crowd we've ever seen for Easter Monday when the Hawks and the Cats.
They're both in
suit
good
up.
form, so
They're
that
both
is
in
not a
good
bad
form,
call,
so it
and I like that. It is
should-
a big call. What was it last year? While I go
Last
through
year,
mine.
it's the last few years. It's hasn't been amazing. 2024. I'm pressing wrong buttons here. Only 67,020.
So you've got a
So I'm
huge,
expecting another
huge call.
15,000, which is a big call. But I'm relatively confident that we will see, if not 82,000, then just above 80.
Very nice.
But
Now,
82,000
I've got
it is
another
for mine.
win by 150 plus. I've kept Gold Coast and Fremantle in, and I'm including Essendon and Carlton now.
Now, before we move, I just want to have a look. Is there anybody there? Yeah, you've put Carlton. Is there anyone in there? Yeah. No
So
Bombers
Carlton
who play
played
no, you've got
North.
Bombers.
Carlton played North Melbourne.
Is there anyone
Essendon
there?
play West Coast, and that's both on the Friday.
Yep.
And then Melbourne play Fremantle at the G Saturday at
Looking
1:20.
at the fixture right here, right now.
And Gold Coast play Saturday night.
Looking at the fixture right here, right now, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any next week. We can go back. I really should have done that team for that team. Though I'm sure, knowing football, there'll be a very obvious one.
There'll be one result
There'll
where
be
it'll be
one
like
result
Sydney
where it's
win by
like-
50 plus,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Port Adelaide win by 50 plus, or St Kilda get dogged by. Sorry, that was a very bad pun. But I think 150 plus is a. You think, those four teams on who they're playing, it's going to be easy. But as we've shown in the past few weeks,
in the last
it's
few
not
weeks,
as
it's
easy.
not as easy.
So that is my big call for the week. Now let's go through to the matchups for this week, and it is the Easter round,
It's Easter round.
starting
It's Easter
Thursday night
weekend.
with the now traditional Brisbane Lions v Collingwood at the Gabba, followed by North Melbourne Carlton on Good Friday at Marvel Stadium, and then West Coast and Essendon over in the West.
Yes.
Good Friday night. So starting off with some traditional and West Coast Essendon coming into that as well. On Saturday, we see Melbourne Fremantle, Adelaide GWS, and then Richmond Gold Coast. And on Sunday, it's Sydney and Port Adelaide, and at 7:20 on Sunday.
Yes. Prime time.
At that
Again,
time, it's
that's
Western
Sydney
Bulldogs
time.
and St Kilda. Now,
we might,
this one, I believe, we'll see where both teams are at.
yeah.
Whoever wins this, if it's a clean victory, if it's a big victory, it will do.
There's a few games in here, the Brisbane Collingwood game, even you can throw in Melbourne, Fremantle, where there are sort of
I
senses
feel like
where,
this one
but the
will
Bulldogs St Kilda
determine-
won more than
I feel
anyone,
like this
more
one
than
will
any others.
determine if either of them are to be final contenders. It has to be a close game, or one team will run away with it. They're the final contender. And then on Monday, we've got the good Easter Monday.
Yeah,
I was going to
Easter
say the good Monday clash. It's Geelong versus Hawthorn.
Well, it will be a good Monday if the Cats get up. Expect a big crowd in there. It's going to be a fascinating contest, especially with the gather rounds that these two teams have had.
You did allude to WrestleMania coming up on the weekend, so I might not watch as much football as I will be watching the wrestling, but it's good because wrestling will be done by the time, or on Sunday, it'll be done by the time the first game is on.
Yep.
And it's on Monday as well.
Yeah.
And it will be done, hopefully, by the time Geelong Hawthorn starts, so I can go wrestling into football both days.
I'm going to do that on Anzac Day. There's going to be Premier League darts, and then there's going to be the NFL draft, where my team, the Tennessee Titans, have the first pick, and that'll lead into Collingwood Essendon. So we've got similar days coming up in the next week or two.
But we will stay tuned.
Jam-packed sport that hopefully should line up nicely.
Hopefully it lines up nicely. We'll be staying tuned to all the footy action, and we'll be discussing it next week. So that's it for this week.
Good show.
We'll see you next week. See ya.